have 5 minutes TED-style talks on various topics delivered prior Maghrib. We hope these talks encapsulate the passion and expertise of the speaker to engage us on an important topic. We hope this will integrate various aspects of our daily lives with the spiritual enhancement we experience during Shahr Ramadan. Today we are honoured to have amongst us Iqbal Asaria. He's a trustee here at SICM, and in 2005 he was awarded the CBE for services to international development. He'll be speaking to us today about translation of the Qur'an in non-Arabic script-based languages. I'd like you to introduce him with loud salawat.
So today we want to take up a subject which is a little bit unfamiliar, but also it does present a number of interesting angles. So as you can imagine, the issue of translating the Quran or parts of the Quran came about as soon as some non-Arabic speaking people came within the fold of Islam. So not knowing Arabic, they obviously sought to see what is the meaning of the Quran, right? Now there are two reports. Both of them I don't think, or I couldn't find them to be extremely authentic, but I'll just let you know because they relate to something else I want to cover. Both are relating to Salman Farsi. The first one says that Salman's people asked him to translate some of the Quran to explain it to them. And it said that Salman asked the Prophet, and the Prophet did not disapprove of this particular action. The other report is a slightly more complicated one. It says that Salman's people asked him to ask the Prophet if they could pray in Persian. Again, it is said that he asked the Prophet and the Prophet did not disapprove of it. So he said, fine. Now, as I said, both of these are not authentic, but they are in the reports. What makes it more challenging is that later on, when the schools of jurisprudence developed, one of the founders of the major schools, Abu Hanifa Nomani, who was Persian himself, he gave the opinion that Persians could pray in Farsi, or the translated Farsi. And he cited this couple of reports from Salman as part of his discourse and evidence. Obviously, this was a very, very revolutionary departure from what we know today and what people understood there. Because if you can pray in Persian, then why not in Urdu and Malay and English and Gujarati and whatever you want. So the Arabic is gone. Two of his leading students, Abu Yusuf and Shaybani, they said, Sheikh, this is not correct. He said, no, it is correct. They said, Sheikh, it is only maybe we should push it to say that those who do not know Arabic at all and cannot learn, they should be able to pray in Farsi. So that is always there, but anybody can pray in Farsi. So this controversy was introduced by Abu Hanifa into the discourse, and to this day I think his opinion stands, It hasn't been repudiated by anybody in the Hanafi school. Obviously, the other three Sunni schools at that time repudiated that and said, no, the prayer must be in Arabic. And of course, as we know now, most of the Hanafis have also, in effect, started to pray in Arabic. Nobody prays in fact, as we saw last time, even to talk about Khuda for the Hanafis becomes shirk. So praying in Persian, according to, and most of these people are Hanafis. Most of the Taliban, the Deoband, a lot of them are Hanafis. The Syrians, Daesh people, and so on, right? So it is a strange coincidence that it is Abu Hanifa who is bringing. In fact, a lot of them nowadays are even a little bit reluctant to call him a Persian. They just stop at Abu Hanifa. They don't say Abu Hanifa Nomani, where you would then understand his origin. Okay, so that's in this language. Then we come to other languages. In terms of other languages, translation posed a couple of different kinds of questions. The first one was that, say for example, as far as English is concerned, most of the early English or Latin translations were the work of missionaries. And they had a specific intention. It wasn't a disinterested enterprise. It wasn't a kind of work to understand the Quran. It was specifically to disprove the authenticity of the Quran, saying that this is not a revealed book. Some of them said, I will translate this to show the barbarity of the Muslims, which was one of the prevalent views. Another one said that I will translate this to refute. Third one said that I will translate this so that we can then get the tools to convert the Muslims back into Christianity, and so on. So this kind of thing stemmed from the fact that for early Christians and Jews, the coming of the Prophet represented a big challenge to their whole theology. They could not accept another prophet after Isa alayhi salam. And so they regarded the Prophet as a false prophet. A false prophet bringing a divine book is a bigger problem. So they set out to translate in order to equip the missionaries to try to convince the Muslims that this was a false religion. And therefore, English translations took on a specific connotation until recent times when you had some decent translations. Before that, a lot of the older translations were all sort of tinged with this kind of spirit of trying to refute. You had translations in other languages where people argued that probably it is not possible to translate the Quran and therefore it should not be translated. Because any translation will not convey the proper meaning of the text. So you should either understand it in Arabic or get somebody else to explain to you in Arabic. And it took a long time before there was a general sort of, not acceptance, but saying, fine, don't interfere with the prayers, as Abu Hanifa was saying, but you can translate to understand the Quran. Now another controversy came. So, for example, if you look at India, and we look at the difference between the Muslims, one group of Muslims, say even if you look at the Gujarati Muslims, you find that one part, and we are from amongst them, were okay with using the Sanskrit script for both translating and transliterating the Quran. So we have in the works of Haji Ghulam Ali, for example, two major developments. One is that the Quran is written in the Sanskrit script with a uniquely developed diacritical marks and things which allows you to read the Quran as if you were reading it in Arabic. I don't know if you have seen it, but that's a unique contribution of Haji Ghulam Ali. The second part of it is that then he translated that into Gujarati language as well. So he did both. Some people argued that to use the Sanskrit script for writing the words of the Quran itself was shirk and therefore should not be used. And so specifically the Fatimi Bohras, they said we cannot use the Sanskrit script for this kind of thing. So they started to write Gujarati in Arabic script. So if you read their books, you will see Gujarati written in Arabic script because they think Sanskrit script should not be written for religious discourse at all, full stop. So you see this kind of controversies continued. In the Swahili coast, again, when the discussion came on translating the Quran, again, it was a 50-year challenge before it was allowed, because most of the scholars said it cannot be translated and therefore it should not be. Any translation you make will distort the picture. And so it became even more complicated in terms of whether to translate or not to translate. The balance, of course, all the time is that if you don't translate, then the access to a lot of people will not be there. If you translate, you run the risk of not conveying the proper meaning. And this has been in many, many cultures, the same discussion has been going on. Even today, when you have a new translation, I think I counted 60 or 70 translations just in the last 50 years. So nearly one a year. Somebody saying, I have now put a new translation and a new translation and a new translation. Now, whether any of them convey the original or not, I don't know. But this controversy has always been there. If you go back to the discussion of Abu Hanifa, it relates to the fact that whether the Quran itself, as it is the created word of God, so you can't do anything with it, or it is the Prophet's expression of what God inspired him. And the two things will have different implications of what you can do with the Quran in translation or otherwise. If you believe the later, you can also pray in other languages because it's only a question of translating that language. Okay? I think finally, because sometimes also the motivation of the translator changes, and even amongst Muslims, we have a number of translations which give a different impression. So, for example, there are 5 or 6 Ahmadi translations which try to show that Isa alayhi salam was crucified, because according to them, then this their Messiah is resurrection of Isa and all those things. Even a prominent translator like Muhammad Asad, who converted from Judaism to Islam, tries to imply that Isa alayhi salam was crucified. So, this kind of questions will come up in translation. In the original Arabic, this doesn't figure. Yeah. So, apart from the missionaries, we also have internal problems in translating the Quran. But I think in sum, let me say that at the moment there is consensus amongst Muslims that as far as prayer is concerned, it must be in the original Arabic, despite the views of Abu Hanifa. But as far as translation is concerned, more and more it has become permissible in order to get people to access the Quran. But then there are other opinions which say that really the ordinary people do not need to access the Quran. They just need to read. So therefore, giving them this facility will only confuse them. So better let them just read in the Arabic and let the learned people look at Arabic, look at the translations and so on. So inshallah, this gives you a picture of something. You may then dig and find things in different cultures, in different languages where this controversy has been caused, and we can compile all of them together to see a very interesting chapter emerging. Assalamu alaikum.